the Hort-Talk and HTA podcast. You're listening to episode 9, The Power of Visual Merchandising. I'm Alex Jenkins, your host, and I'm joined by 3 very special guests, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Manning and I have been working in the industry, visual merchandising industry for over 20 years now, joining Harrods, Selfridges, Harvey Nichols and Marks and Spencer's, and then opening up my own consultancy company. I have worked with the HTA, Alex and Holly, offering them visual merchandising training for around 6 years now. We first of all offered lots of practical training, and we're now offering a series of online training courses. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maddie Bayfield and I work at Garnett's Gardens, which is a small garden centre in Suffolk. I work in the garden centre itself as well as a farm shop and the cafe on site.
Hi, I'm Celia. I am based at Yarnton Home and Garden. I was brought in about 3.5 years ago with a new management team to revive the garden centre, along with a management team, a new management team and marketing. And I've been in retail for far too many years that I care to remember, and specialising in visual merchandising for probably the last 15 years.
Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you very much for agreeing to join us today. So today we'll talk about the power of visual merchandising. So let's kick off with what we think the benefits of visual merchandising really are and what the impact of really positive, good visual merchandising can be.
I would say the key thing from obviously working in the industry is that it's not just about making things look pretty, which I feel in the past we've been labelled as a team just to make things look pretty and just a creative team. With working as a consultant and monitoring sales which have come from effective visual merchandising, we are starting to see increases on an average of 20 to 25%. So I feel that we actually also have a commercial value which most retailers are now recognising, and it creates a bit more importance to our role.
Yes, I agree there, Sarah. I think when I took on the challenge of the garden centre here, it was a very tired centre, but actually what we needed to do was increase the footfall, increase the offer and the experience. So for me, the VM side has been not only working with the products and how the products are displayed, but also about enhancing the environment, the shopping environment for customers. I had no brief actually, but we made up the brief really along the lines of where we wanted the business to go and future-proofing, all of that side of things. So for me, the VM is very much about the environment as well as the products.
I find that being a small garden centre, especially because we're limited with what space we have to display things, being more mindful of the visual merchandising means that we actually look at trends in advance and know like what people would want and therefore kind of what to buy and how much to buy in. So then we can plan in advance how much we're going to have, kind of how we're going to display it as well.
You know, you've touched on the fact that it actually increases sales. You know, there is a commercial benefit to it, but there's actually a lot more behind that, isn't there? You know, there's the psychology of the customer that comes in and the way that they see the product and touch the product, shop the product.
Very much so. I think, and Sarah touched on this, that, you know, up until perhaps recently, even the last couple of years, VM has been seen as, you know, Sarah said, making things pretty. My husband would say that, you know. I've said to him that, you know, at dinner parties, people have said, well, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, maybe my husband could answer that. And he said exactly that to people. Oh, she works in a garden centre, makes things look pretty. It's not that at all. There's a huge science behind it. That actually is the bit that really excites me. It's the customer flow and the customer journey, but also what is it about, how do we make customers actually come into the shop or centre, how we actually encourage them to buy into the products as well, and to the brand, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I found that on the visual merchandising course, I found it interesting learning how kind of the use of colours and shapes and textures would kind of impact the atmosphere you created, and therefore kind of the impact it would have on the customer and how they felt about what products they're buying.
And on the courses, we also cover the importance of the 4 key principles. And the 4 key principles in regards to techniques like symmetrical pyramids and thinking about odd quantities, so repetition, all subconsciously help our customer to be able to see products or see installations, see product merchandising with so much more ease, that it kind of attracts them at eye level. It creates a focal point, it draws interest, but it can just promote and really elevate a product.
What do you think it is now? Do you think it is that commercial element that's giving it more kind of kudos as a technique, or what do you think is changing that is making people take more notice of visual merchandising?
As a freelance consultant, I have noticed over the past few years, there has been an increase in more companies, probably not typical retailers, anyone from, say, exhibitions to maybe online companies, e-commerce companies, who are kind of now taking an interest in this area. I feel that they are aware of the commercial possibilities of it. But I think also if we start to maybe look at industry insiders like Mary Porters, and she's obviously been talking about all of this in her podcast, which is The Kindness Economy. If anyone wants to have a look at that, you can find that on Apple Podcasts. She's been talking quite a lot, particularly over the last couple of years, about this multi-sensory experience, and that, to be able to draw customers to come back to store. And Celia was obviously talking about this earlier on in regards to the environment, but also creating theatre, entertainment. That could be through hospitality, through sensory experiences, which obviously garden centres all encompass that, is really important. So I feel that lots of companies and brands now recognise that actually it's the VM team who helped to create that amazing experience in store.
We've kind of touched on it a little bit, but one issue that we've had certainly in the past, and Sarah, you can probably talk about this a little bit more as well, after the training courses that we've delivered at the HCA, is that people learn all these techniques and they have all this enthusiasm and this knowledge, and they want to apply it in their own business, but quite often they then meet this wall from above that doesn't understand all the things that we've just been talking about, that benefit. Do you think that's changing? Do you think more people are taking notice of it? Do you think, what can we do to kind of stop that being a problem, to allow people to really implement visual merchandising to kind of the most effective level?
I think if I can just say, I think that's something that I've certainly come across in the garden centre that I'm now working in. It's been a garden centre that's been here for sort of 40 odd years. It started life as a nursery, growing plants and all the rest of it. Started growing vegetables for the colleges in Oxford, for instance. It's seen a lot of change, but needed a big new look, really, to be able to bring it into the market, the competitive market that we're now in. It's been quite a journey bringing on a team who have been used to doing things a certain way, that have been here for many years, but also trying to explain why it is that we're doing it. And that's actually been absolutely key. And then showing people, giving them the opportunity to see how they can actually influence the business going forward by doing the visual merchandising, basically. So teaching people why we're doing it, how we're doing it as we're going along, and they're then able to actually do something physical to help with that bigger picture.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially like well-established businesses, because they've been going for so long, they might not recognise that there is a problem in the way they're doing things, and therefore kind of, if someone is there to say, like, we could be doing it in this way, it introduces that creativity to think, right, how can we change things visually to, like, make sales better?
Yes, and also attracting, particularly with the garden centres, I think as well, it's attracting that younger gardeners, the families. We've seen this over COVID. We've got a much younger generation of people who see images on social media, Instagram, Pinterest all the time, who almost come to expect that.
Yeah.
But the juxtaposition of moving that on from the traditional model is actually quite a difficult one. But I think, that's the exciting bit, really.
Yeah, I think especially younger people are looking for things that are like aspirational, inspirational. So if there are those displays kind of in store that do catch their interest, they're more likely to buy those products. Whereas if you walked in, everything's just flat and plain, you wouldn't necessarily think, oh gosh, I want to like recreate that in my own life.
Yes, exactly. I think that then it's a lot more impulse purchases that they're making, and particularly with the plants, I would say. They don't necessarily need to know all about what plants they are to a certain degree, but what we're trying to do is hook them into something and actually buy something that they're seeing on an impulse purchase, rather than knowing what particular plant they're coming in to buy. But then we've got the hook for them. They can see how lovely it's making everything look at home, with balconies, all of that. And the RHS, for instance, has promoted that this year with the affordable gardens. So by bringing the youngsters in, we do need, through VM, to actually attract them as well. So it's absolutely key.
I think that's a good point. I think also with not only my own work, but also on the courses as well. It's, obviously the online ones are part theory, part practical. And as part of the practical examples and tasks, we ask the attendees to create areas like hotspots, which would be like your first area in store. And I think even if you could maybe work with a small space in the garden centre, have a look at it, monitor it. I've personally always seen increases in sales quite quickly. I don't know, Maddie and Celia, be interesting just to ask you that. But I would say on average, sort of a week, 2 weeks, you are starting to see those increases happening. And I feel that if you can prove that in kind of one small area, and they see the increases in sales and the increase in kind of customer reaction, they're more than likely to kind of then allow you to then branch off and to be able to, increase and move into other areas as such.
We've actually seen that, Sarah, haven't we, on one of our practical courses pre-COVID, when we were, I don't know if you remember, we were merchandising a gifting table that didn't have much love. And before we'd even finished merchandising it, the product was being taken off the table quicker than we could then merchandise it on the table.
I found that as well when I was doing the visual merchandising course, and we had to do like hotspots. I had customers kind of taking things off my display as I was putting them on. So you kind of have to be quick in what you're doing.
Yes,
I also found that, like, when you were doing that, less people were asking questions about like where things were, or like if we stopped things, because we put things, because we're thinking about it more, what we were doing. We placed things or put better signage so people actually knew where things were without us having to keep kind of showing people around.
And all of that was quite evident with chems and ferts. So we actually had a class during the online course, which was covering chems and ferts, which is obviously quite a tricky product to make look interesting. And lots of the practical examples were really exhibiting much more shoppable, easy to shop areas. And I feel that customers can then find what they're looking for a lot quicker. It's also appealing that product to a much more broader audience as well.
I think I know, my team have done your course there, and I know they found it really interesting, and actually it's opened their eyes, even though they've been doing it. One of them in particular has been doing it for a long time. It's very useful. What I found then is that actually from that, they're then helping other members of the team, which is lovely to see, actually. So that's really helpful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is that, with a lot of staff, what's really nice, as you're saying, with the hotspots, is that's a key thing that we can do, is to work with team members and just show them, get them the chance, show them the principles, get them to do that, work with them to do the display, and then you can stand back and they can watch that being shopped. So it's a very, very easy way of showing people the importance of what we're doing and why we're doing something, which is really, really useful for me, I think.
Now, with like the limited experience I have, that like say when other members of staff are doing displays, I feel confident now in saying, well, have you thought about doing it like this, or why are you doing it like that, kind of thing, and then trying to kind of explain what I have learned and seeing if that could be implemented in what they're doing as well.
Yeah. I think what's also really important is that these techniques, these visual merchandising techniques, are universal. So we're talking about it in the garden centre here, but it doesn't matter whether you're doing it in the farm shop or the garden centre or with chems and ferts or plants or, you know, whatever store it might be. It's really interesting to see that you apply these principles on something and it will completely change the way the customer interacts with it. And that, you know, that is a really important message.
Yes, and actually, you know, that again is key, Alex, there, because a good visual merchandiser, it's the same principle. A good visual merchandiser should be able to make anything sell. That's why we're here.
Don't put the pressure on, Celia.
Well, you know, no, but it's true, isn't it? It's true. You know, in the old days when we had fishmongers and things, you know, and the high street, you know, we could see the beautiful displays they were doing. And so, you know, more in the supermarkets now, but you know, they're there to sell this specialist knowledge, but to make things look attractive for the customers to buy, and they will then sell what they're doing, making their livelihoods out of. So it's hugely important.
It's interesting. We also cover quite a lot about link selling and this connection of products, which obviously we're talking about. But, you know, if anyone is having a listen of this, you know, just creating those link selling techniques in your hotspot where you're connecting products up all together as a package. It's so interesting how you'll straight away see customers wanting to come in and buy into that whole package of products. And, you know, as Alex just said, that can work for food, that can work for chems and ferts, planting, homeware, fashion.
If you put a plant in a nice plant pot and I see them together, I can guarantee you as a customer, I'll pick both of them up.
Absolutely. You know, that's what we want, isn't it? Yeah. Absolutely. It's storytelling and, you know, getting people to buy into the whole story. You know, that's what's so wonderful about it.
And do you think that customers' expectations have changed? Do you think the huge increase in social media and platforms on social media like TikTok and Instagram, which are image and video heavy, and places, I suppose, like IKEA, where it's all very much lifestyle based, the displays where, you know, you can see it as it might be in your own home, do you think that's changed the customer's expectation when they're shopping?
Yeah, I mean, if you're used to seeing all these ideal kind of images online, I feel like if you went somewhere and it wasn't displayed very well or wasn't well laid out, you'd be less likely to shop it because it's not what you're kind of looking for based on what you've seen.
Yes, I think that very much. It's almost a detrimental. We've so Bryony and I are our marketing manager here. She and I have worked very, very closely, and I think this is another key point to make, is that out there on the social side of things, people are getting an image of the business and then perhaps looking at these images. So Instagram, for instance, we have a lot of compliments about the wonderful job that Bryony's done with that. What she's said to me right at the beginning is, you need to give me something to market. You know, so what we can't have is the customers looking at all of that and thinking, oh, we'll go there because it looks fantastic, and then coming into store and then having a huge underwhelm. Yeah. So, you know, there's a really big opportunity, and actually something I think, you know, we're all a lot more aware of, is the fact that the image of our brand out there with the customers online has to be represented in store as well.
I think you're right with like the e-commerce stuff, like the online stuff, because if your website is like your shop window, if that then doesn't translate into your business, it's not like a consistent thing running through everything.
Yeah, so that's been a big challenge for me actually with a big garden centre, is to keep her fed, if you like, and keep that channel
with the consistent information,
communication going. Yes. So, and equally, you know, as professionals, you know, we also need to make sure that what is going out online is also representative of what our standards.
I think, I mean, also over the past 2 years, we have seen an increase in the type of people who are actually accessing online content now. And I think most customers, even if they are that slightly older customer, I think they are quite confident online and, happy to look at Facebook pages and Instagram, so it's kind of sort of covering a whole multitude of different customer profiles. It's interesting because we actually cover e-commerce on the online courses, and it's really interesting from a principle point of view that actually a lot of the practical principles that you can apply on the shop floor, you can actually transfer those straight over to the e-commerce site and also connect them with the Instagram and obviously Facebook as well.
One time of year where a customer comes to a garden centre to see the visual merchandising alone, and I'm going to say it, it's the C word, it's Christmas. But you do, I do it. You go to the garden centre because you want to see the Christmas displays as much as you want to buy them and do everything else. Like, it's exciting to see them all looking fantastic. Is Christmas a huge pressure? Like, where do we stand with Christmas? How do you feel about it?
That by the time one Christmas comes around, you're already kind of having to figure out what the trends will be for the next year and try and buy for that. So it's like you're always kind of trying to catch up with the next Christmas.
Yes, and particularly if you're involved with the buying side, which I am, which I actually find helps me with the VM side and putting the Christmas department together. That is absolutely key there. I actually did my first Christmas order for this coming Christmas on the 8th of December last year. So but we know what sells, what's selling, what we've still got left. With the supply issues that we've had as well, that's absolutely even more key this year, is to plan ahead.
I actually find it kind of really interesting how, as if I speak as a customer, I feel like, I want to come and shop Christmas more from the garden centres than I would from the high street now. So it feels like, it's such a huge opportunity for all of you, really, because, you've got that trust element, you've got that local element, and I feel people can come to you and purchase everything, really, can't they? From anything from a hamper to Christmas decorations.
Do you find that at Christmas, because that people are coming in to buy a lot of these items, you get a more free rein to be more creative, and there's less pushback from above to do the things that you want to do? Are you able to kind of do more?
Yes, very definitely. Christmas is a VM thing. People, within the company, people sort of almost expect that that's going to happen, that we're going to cause a huge amount of disruption, and it's all going to be absolutely wonderful. We have. There's a lot of pressure financially at this time of the year. So they seem quite happy to leave that to us in a way. They all know what hard work it is. So they're all more than happy to leave it to us. Yes, I would definitely say.
Yeah, there is definitely that bit of pressure because that the customer is expecting it to look or be a certain way. What I found is, because we're a limited space, we kind of tend to get everything out so it can be bought and then work on kind of making the displays kind of after that, which may be the wrong way round of doing it, but
it's always that trick, isn't it, when you've got some beautiful table displays and then you think actually where I'd actually really like to hang something over that table, that means I've got to take all of that off to then go on a ladder. You're teetering over the top of the table thinking, am I going to just make this a complete disaster? But yes, it's always that space where you need it, where you've got a table underneath. So it is quite a juggle.
Have you ever seen a particular display, or is there a particular brand or something that you have just seen and gone, do you know what, that's it for me, that's the pinnacle of visual merchandising? Sarah, you've worked with some incredible brands, and I've seen some of the windows that you've created, and you've just come back from Chelsea, so that's a really good example. Yes. But
Chelsea is an amazing place for inspiration, and we were sort of just talking earlier on about how the trade stands, particularly the level of product presentation, visual merchandising has massively come on in the past few years. I don't know if you agree, Celia, but
yes,
you can
absolutely
really see that really evident, you know, that people are looking at how to make their brands and their product more aspirational. Chelsea is an amazing place for theatre and inspiration, you know, so obviously people are coming along to be able to have that expectation. But I feel even with those smaller gardens and the smaller trade stands, they are producing some brilliant examples of BM. One example I saw yesterday was the Selfridges Jacquemus installation, which is obviously, you know, looking at it from a more of a sort of department store. And we kind of cover this on the courses, but the whole pop-up shop element, I think, is quite interesting just to look at, just for ideas of how you can create this sensory experience. So Jacquemus have worked with smell, sound, experience. They've got a 24-hour vending machine, which has also been installed in Milan and Paris, you know. So I would say, as an example, currently out there on the high street, Selfridges is a very, very good example where they are creative, but they're also creating that aspirational appeal to draw the customer to come to shop in person.
I was also going to say about the pop-up shops, because we spoke about those on the visual merchandising course, and I guess it really shows what you can do, one, like seasonally, like how easily they can change what they're doing and switch it over depending on what's the trend or what's the season, but also kind of how well they can display things visually, like in such a small space, and then keeping it current for the customers as well.
Yes, I think the beauty of pop-ups is that you know, for customers, they've actually got that constant change, which actually helps us as, you know, as established retailers. That helps a lot. We've got a small pop-up at the garden centre, actually, which we started as an initiative really because I had a bit too much space, and we felt that after lockdown, a lot of these smaller companies that were sort of established around kitchen tables actually could do with a bit of, you know, well, VM help as much as anything, and to try and help them with their businesses, and, you know, to teach them a bit about footfall. We called it our Under the Wing initiative, which has really taken off. But what I find more than anything is actually the most advice that we can give them is about how they can display their products. And actually they very, very quickly learn that by displaying their products, you know, well, and the reasoning behind it, their actual sales will increase. And I think that's a key message for us, is that, you know, the guys that, or the big retailers that know how to do this, and the bigger companies, it's absolutely amazing what they do. It really is. But then that can also transpire to the smaller businesses as well.
Talking about the size of the business, about budgets. I know Sarah talks about the way that you can use props and recycle things and stuff on the training, but you know, these big brands that do it really, really well have obviously got quite a large visual merchandising budget. What would you say are some tips or ideas, or how do you feel about the fact that you can actually do some pretty incredible things with not much?
I feel as though as a smaller business, we tend to have less props available, but then on the flip side of that, that can make you kind of more creative in what you're doing. Because you think, right, I've already done it this way. You think, right, what else can I do? And I guess it makes you think harder into it.
That's absolutely. I think the less you have to work with, well, actually, no, not less you have to work with, but I think that's probably the creativity side of what we do, is that we all work with what we've got.
Yeah.
So whether it's a massive big budget or a tiny budget, it's what you do with it that is the most important, most effective.
Yeah, I would completely agree there. I think, you know, if you want to have a look at other brands, you know, who create a lot of their own props for windows, for installations in store. I walked past Anthropology yesterday. They had used recycled paper, you know, so if you're looking for inspiration, you know, try to have a look at some of the high street brands who are doing that. There's some great inspiration via Instagram and Pinterest, you know, to be able to help you. But I mean, you know, there's so much, for example, even if you've got some pallets or crates, you know, anything like that can be reused over and over again, and you know, you can sort of really create some real magical installations just by having just some key pieces.
But also just add to that I think anywhere that you can get your inspiration from, what's key about that is how you interpret it in your environment. Mm-hmm. So you can I look at anthropology. I was just bowled over the first time I went to the first anthropology. I was so excited because I thought, yes, they're putting BM on the map. And actually from there, I think we've seen now this huge, as you say, huge increase in acknowledging what we do, and store environment, and how we can, how we help that for business to develop businesses, but also about how we then interpret all this inspiration that you get from all over the place, how it's actually how we interpret it in our environments.
I think also, you know, just looking at things like customer flow, the customer's journey, you know, even just changing sort of locations of departments and products, and opening up walkways, and maybe adding more pelmet signage, for example, you know, all those small things. You don't always have to have lots of props and, you know, huge budgets. You can have a kind of impact just by applying principles to floor plans, for example, or just creating a great hotspot with products.
Doing a customer flow exercise, even within like part of our shop and garden centre, showed kind of one section where not that many people went at all. So now we've kind of switched it round, and people seem to be flowing through like the whole site, and therefore kind of looking at all the products we have to offer. Corners, like say in the back of the centre that weren't very shopped, we put things that didn't really matter because they weren't getting shopped. But then now I think, thinking about it more, we're putting things that people will want to shop at the back, and therefore they have to travel through the whole kind of centre to get to them.
See, I pay attention, Sarah. I got that right, wasn't it?
That's very good. I'm very impressed, you know, and I mean, I've obviously really impressed with Addie's just recently come on our course. So you had your last class in April, you know, and it's really great to hear that you're actually seeing improvements to these areas, you know, already, and that you can see them actually happening in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think because like other people know that I'm kind of looking out for things now, it's making them think about it more, because they don't want me to pick them up on it.
Very good. And it just shows how, you know, kind of online training, you know, okay, the actual presentation side of it is obviously all online, but it just shows that actually it can be applied very practically after the course, during the course, you know, and as a point that we talked about earlier on, you can then pass on that knowledge to other people in your team in store to be able to create those sort of same consistent messages across the whole business.
And I mean, even without the face-to-face, without the in-person, I should say, interaction in the course, because we were being set assignments a couple of times a month, it meant that we were doing the practical element of it. And then because we were coming back and talking about it, we could see what we had done well and then what we could do better the next time we try and do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's key. I think also the actual sharing of best practice with other HDA members was also very important and also helpful as well.
It's very exciting. I mean, I'm thrilled, you know, to hear this wonderful, lovely young lady who's just, you know, learned so much on just from an online course. It's fabulous.
Thank you. And I mean, obviously credit to kind of Maddie and everyone else that's come on the courses, because they've all worked really hard at the practical elements. So it's great to hear that you're seeing all those results coming through. Thank you.
I think one thing that those working in VM should get more recognition for is that when you're merchandising these areas, these shoppable areas, you're constantly having to merchandise them, because as soon as they're shot, you're having to do it again. It's a constant battle of making it look that way so that it's always shoppable. And I don't think quite often people realise actually how much hard work that is.
It is relentless, actually, and we're sort of we're probably victims of our own success to a certain degree. There's nothing. I always say, if we do a night shift, for instance, the shop looks absolutely amazing, but that's when I need the photographer to come in and take the photographs for Instagram. Within 20 minutes, particularly with hotspots or particularly, things that we're promoting or all sorts of things like that, within minutes, that whole display and all that hard work has almost been, was, I'm not say ruined, because it's doing its job. But on the other hand, I keep thinking, oh no, and one of my colleagues, for instance, is like, oh no, don't let the customers near it. Don't let the customers near it. I'm really proud of this. So it's, it would be, we'd have a very wonderful looking lot of garden centres and shops if we didn't have our customers. But then on the other hand, that's what we're doing it for. So
is your camera roll just full of pictures of the beautiful displays you make before they're shopped?
I've currently, actually, you won't believe this, I've currently got 30,000 photographs on my camera roll.
That's more than mine, I think.
Most of it, if you like you, Sarah, as well, I can imagine. So most of that is work related and images and inspiration and all of that. So yeah,
definitely. I mean, all of that is 100% proof, though, that what you're implementing is working, and it's working not even after a week. It's working straight afterwards, isn't it? It's immediate.
Yes, and that's actually what's so exciting for the staff. They can see that immediate response. And actually, conversely, if it's not being shopped and it still looks exactly the same within a week, then we have a problem. We need to address it. So, it's a wonderful way of learning about your business and your customers. So,
to finish off, what's your favourite thing to merchandise? Do you have a product or a range of products or a type of thing that you actually go, I really, really enjoy doing this?
You'll probably think that I'm just saying this, and I'm really not. I've just had 2 weeks out in our plants department. It's a normal thing for us, obviously, with Chelsea Week coming up. We like to replicate what we're seeing on the TV as well. I like to have our own little version of Chelsea Flower Show in the garden centre that customers can easily relate to. I've absolutely loved it, and to be quite honest, I'd be quite happy to work out there all the time.
Having done the visual merchandising course, I enjoyed kind of having the opportunity to merchandise, say, like the plants and stuff, where you're getting to use different colours and textures and shapes and getting to be more creative, I guess, than you would be with just, say, like tea and cake indoors.
I have to say, when I first joined Harrods, I was part of the food hall team. So they obviously have a huge food hall at Harrods. So that was my main training. And I do always have a passion for sort of displaying food, 3D products. I really like working with hospitality as well. I think it's interesting, if you have a look at 3D products, you can really sort of make those look very much more exciting. Whereas if you're dressing fashion, you can obviously dress it on a mannequin, but you can't really kind of go that extra mile with it. Whereas I feel with home accessories, furniture, which I've got a huge passion for, interiors, food, you can make it look so exciting, and you can bring that theatre into that product presentation, which I absolutely love. So I've got a real joy for creating beautiful asymmetrical groups, and I have to say that all comes from my Harrods training.
Thank you very much to my 3 special guests today. I hope you've really enjoyed listening. This has been Hort-Talk, episode 9, The Power of Visual Merchandising. And I think that you can all agree from the passion of these 3 ladies that it is a really powerful tool to use within our industry. Our next episode will be episode 10 on women in horticulture. But for now, stay safe, everyone. Take care.